Arielle Rowan had no idea that her spontaneous weekend escape to a vineyard in Napa Valley would start with her crashing into a man carrying a bottle of vintage Merlot. "I'm so sorry," she gasped, stumbling backward as red droplets splashed her cream blouse. The man caught her elbow before she could fall. "You're okay," he said, steadying her, deep voice, crisp white shirt, rolled sleeves, tanned skin, dark eyes that watched her too closely. "You just sacrificed a very expensive bottle of wine, though." She looked down at the crimson stain blooming across her chest and laughed under her breath. "Well, maybe it's an improvement," he raised a brow. "You think wine stains improve outfits?" "No," Arielle said, brushing her hair behind her ear with a sheepish smile. "But honestly, I've had a year that makes this feel like a win." He paused, then held out his hand. "I'm Sterling Knox. I own this place." She blinked. "You're the CEO of the Vineyard." That's right. Of course he was. The quiet confidence, the effortless authority in his stance, the way everyone nodded respectfully as they passed. He didn't just work here. He ruled it. "I'm Arielle," she said, shaking his hand. "Rowan. I'm here for the tasting tour." "Well, I just ruined the first impression, so let me make it up to you." He gestured to the private tasting terrace. "Come with me, you'll get the real experience." Arielle hesitated. She'd come here alone, needing a break after quitting her job and ending a long-term relationship that had gone nowhere. She hadn't expected a private tour from the CEO. "Is this part of the package?" she asked. "No," Sterling said with a grin, "but you crashed into me. That makes you special." She followed him past rows of manicured vines, the sun warming her shoulders, the scent of lavender and oak in the air. A long terrace overlooked the valley. A small table had already been set for two. He pulled out a chair for her and poured a golden white into her glass. "Try this. It's a Viognier floral, citrusy, full-bodied, like someone who doesn't apologize for being a little bold." She sipped, surprised. "That's actually spot on." Sterling leaned back in his chair. "I spend a lot of time matching people to wines. It's a weird habit." "Do it again," she said, smiling. "What would you recommend for someone who's rebuilding her life from scratch?" He studied her, but not in a flirty way, more like he saw things she hadn't even said out loud yet. "Something earthy, honest. Something that doesn't pretend to be perfect but leaves a mark." He reached for another bottle. "Cabernet Franc." Arielle took a slow sip, letting the dark flavors roll over her tongue. "You're good at this." "I've been doing it a long time," he said. "My grandfather planted the first vines here. I took over when I was 27. She tilted her head. "How old are you now?" 34. "You don't look old enough to run an empire," he chuckled. "I don't run an empire, just grapes and people." But she noticed the Rolex on his wrist, the way his phone buzzed, and he ignored it. The vineyard stretched for acres. There was wealth here, quiet, understated but undeniable. They talked through the afternoon, about how she used to work in branding. How she left her job when her company refused to promote her after 5 years of being told she wasn't quite there yet. How she'd found an old notebook of hers filled with dreams she'd forgotten. "I wanted to write," Arielle admitted, "not copy for other people's campaigns. My own stories." "Then why aren't you?" she shrugged. "Fear, bills, life." Sterling refilled her glass. "You shouldn't let fear win." She looked at him. "Easy for you to say." He held her gaze. "No, it's not." There was something in the way he said it. Like he knew exactly what it was like to bet everything on a dream. When the sun dipped low, painting the sky in golden streaks, he stood. "Come on, I want to show you something." He led her up a narrow trail behind the terrace. They stopped at a hilltop where a stone bench faced the sprawling vineyard below. "My grandfather used to sit here every evening," he said. He said this view reminded him why he kept going. Arielle sat quietly beside him, the breeze lifting her hair. "It's beautiful." Sterling turned to her. "You don't have to know the whole plan. Sometimes you just need to take the next step." She looked at him, his profile lit by the amber sunset. "What was your next step, Sterling?" He glanced down at her hand, resting on the bench. Slowly, he reached over and covered it with his. "This," her breath caught, but before she could say anything, a woman's voice called from behind them. "Sterling." They both turned. A tall, elegant woman in designer wedges walked up the path. "There you are. We have the investors from Bordeaux arriving in 10 minutes." Sterling stood, his expression shifting. Arielle, this is Camille. She runs our international accounts. Camille gave her a tight smile. You must be the press intern? No, Sterling said quickly. She's a guest. I should go, Arielle said, standing. Thank you for the wine and the view. Sterling opened his mouth like he wanted to stop her, but Camille was already slipping her arm through his. Arielle walked back down the path alone, her heart unsteady. He was the CEO. A man with a vineyard, a legacy, and women like that around him. And she was just a girl with a wine-stained blouse and a head full of broken dreams. She shouldn't have cared. But she did, way more than she was ready for. Arielle didn't return to the terrace the next day, despite the invitation that had hung unspoken between them. Instead, she wandered the vineyard's outer trails alone, journal tucked under her arm, trying to pretend her heartbeat didn't still misfire at the memory of Sterling's hand over hers. She found a shaded bench near the olive trees and cracked open her notebook. Pages filled with half-finished ideas stared back at her, but none of them felt right. Her mind kept drifting to the way Sterling had looked at her like he could see straight through the quiet doubt she carried like a second skin. A shadow fell across the page. Still rebuilding your life from scratch. Sterling's voice was low, but the teasing edge was gone. She looked up, heart kicking a little harder. I thought you'd be buried in meetings, or with your international accounts manager. Sterling sat beside her, not close but not far enough to ignore. Camille and I dated years ago. It ended before the vineyard ever became what it is now. Arielle arched a brow. She didn't seem like an ex. She's strategic, he said simply, and she doesn't like being out of the loop. I'm not trying to be in any loop. I know, he said, his gaze steady. That's why I'm here, she closed her notebook. I'm not the kind of person who fits into your world, Sterling. He leaned forward, forearms braced on his knees. Do you know what the first thing I ever did as CEO was? She shook her head. I fired my father's closest advisor. He'd been with the vineyard for 3 decades. People said I was reckless, but he refused to change anything. He wanted to keep the vineyard frozen in time. Arielle's eyes searched his. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, he said. But I knew if I didn't do something different, this place would die slowly. Tradition doesn't survive without growth. She was quiet for a beat. Why are you telling me this? Because you're standing in front of your own vineyard right now, he said. And you're too afraid to plant anything. Arielle's mouth parted slightly, but no words came. I don't want to push, he continued, but I do want you to stop running from what you want. She looked down at her notebook. Even if I tried, I wouldn't know where to start. I do, he said. Meet me tonight at the cellar. I'll show you what starting with nothing looks like. She hesitated. Just us. No wine stains, no Camille, just you and me. Say yes. She met his eyes. Yes. That night, the cellar was quiet except for the low hum of temperature controls and the soft flicker of wall sconces. Sterling was already there, rolling up the sleeves of a dark shirt, his hair slightly tousled like he'd run his hands through it one too many times. I wanted to show you something, he said as he led her deeper into the cellar, past rows of aged barrels. He stopped in front of a small, sealed room. This was my grandfather's experimental room, he explained. He called it the what-if cellar. Every vintage in here started as a gamble. He unlocked the door and stepped aside for her to enter. Inside, the space was smaller, cozier. A single table sat in the center with 2 glasses and an unlabeled bottle. Sterling poured without a word and handed her a glass. Arielle took a sip. The flavor was wild, unexpectedly rich, with an edge of something she couldn't quite name. This isn't like anything else at the vineyard. No, he said, because it's unfinished, still aging, still becoming. She turned toward him, the taste still lingering on her tongue. You're trying to tell me something again. I'm saying you don't need to be polished to be valuable, Sterling said. You're allowed to be in the middle of your process. She set down her glass, her hands a little unsteady. Why are you doing this? Because I see someone who's worth investing in, he said. Not because she needs saving, but because she's already standing up on her own. Arielle stared at him, her throat tight. He stepped closer, careful, not assuming. If this is too much, say the word. But I'm not going to lie to you, I haven't stopped thinking about you since the moment you crashed into me. Her breath hitched. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said. Enough to want more. Silence stretched between them, heavy and charged, then her fingers brushed his. He didn't move at first, just watched her. When she didn't pull away, his hand curled around hers. The door creaked slightly behind them as the cellar's cooling system kicked on, startling the moment into motion. Sterling cleared his throat. There's an annual harvest dinner this weekend. It's black tie, important people. I usually bring someone, she raised a brow. Is this a business proposition? No, he said. It's an invitation. Come with me. Arielle hesitated. I don't have anything to wear, he offered a half smile. Let me take care of that, she narrowed her eyes. That sounds dangerously close to a grand gesture. Maybe it is, Sterling said, but you're worth it. She didn't answer right away, but her fingers stayed laced with his, and that, for now, was enough. Arielle stood in front of the full-length mirror in the guest suite of the Vineyard's private manor, where Sterling had arranged for her to stay for the weekend. The gown hanging from her shoulders shimmered like dusk deep navy silk that clung to her waist and swept to the floor in a gentle cascade. She hadn't asked where it came from, hadn't dared. It had simply appeared at her door with a handwritten note. Wear this, I'll be waiting. The zipper trembled under her fingers as she fastened it, her throat tightening with nerves. She hadn't expected this, the way he made her feel like she could belong in a world she'd never thought she deserved. But the dress fit perfectly, and so did the way her pulse quickened at the thought of seeing him again. When she stepped into the courtyard, the evening air was warm and fragrant with honeysuckle. A string quartet played softly beneath the trellis, and the vineyard glowed under golden lanterns strung between ancient olive trees. Sterling stood near the entrance to the dining tent, dressed in a tailored black tuxedo that looked like it had been made for his shoulders alone. His gaze swept over her, and something in his expression faltered just for a second, like her presence had knocked the breath from his chest. I thought you said no grand gestures, Arielle said quietly as she approached. I didn't say I'd follow the rules, Sterling replied. You look. Don't say breathtaking, she warned, a teasing edge to her voice. I was going to say impossible to ignore, he said, offering his arm. As they entered the candlelit tent, Arielle was struck by the sheer opulence of it, crystal chandeliers suspended from the ceiling, silver cutlery reflecting soft flickers of candlelight, and a scattering of guests in designer gowns and custom suits. Conversations buzzed around them like the low hum of bees, polite and polished. I feel like I'm about to be discovered as an imposter, she whispered to him. You're not, Sterling said. You belong here more than half the people in this tent. You're real. Before she could respond, a woman in a sapphire cocktail dress approached. Her tone was clipped, her gaze flitting between them like she was calculating something. Sterling, I didn't realize you were bringing a guest, she said. I'm Olivia Kearns. My firm handles the Vineyard's Italian partnerships. Arielle Rowan, she said, extending her hand. Olivia's smile didn't touch her eyes. Are you in distribution or development? Neither, Arielle said calmly. I'm in transition. Sterling's hand pressed lightly against the small of her back. She's here as my guest, that's all that matters. As Olivia drifted away, Sterling leaned in. You handled that better than I could have. I'm getting used to the subtle shade, Arielle said. High society has a very specific way of asking who let the help in. They don't matter, he said. But I do want to show you something that does. He guided her through a narrow side path behind the main tent to a smaller table set for two under a canopy of grapevines. A single oil lantern flickered between the plates, and a bottle of red wine sat uncorked beside a pair of glasses. No servers? She asked. No distractions, Sterling said, pulling out her chair. Dinner was simple roasted vegetables, seared duck, and fresh bread from the Vineyard's bakery, but every flavor felt intensified under the intimacy of the canopy. Sterling poured the wine, watching her as she tasted it. What do you think? It's layered, she said after a moment. Bolder than I expected, he nodded, swirling his own glass. We only make this vintage in years when the harvest survives extreme stress, too much rain, too much heat. The vines suffer, but if they endure, the result is stronger than anything we could have grown in perfect conditions. That's poetic, she said softly. Do all your wines come with metaphors? only the ones that remind me of people worth fighting for. The air between them shifted, heavier now. She looked down at her hands, then up at him. You keep doing that? What, seeing me, when I'm not sure I even see myself clearly yet? He leaned forward, elbows resting on the table. That's because you've been looking through the wrong lens. You've let other people decide your clarity for too long. Arielle swallowed hard. I don't want to be a project. You're not, he said. You're a catalyst, her laugh caught in her throat. That sounds dangerous. It is, he said. But worth it. A sudden gust of wind swept through the vines, and Arielle reached instinctively to catch the napkin that fluttered from her lap. Sterling stood and wrapped his jacket around her shoulders before she could protest. You didn't even hesitate, she murmured. I don't hesitate with things that matter. The words settled deep, disarming her more than she wanted to admit. Before she could gather herself, one of the event coordinators approached, speaking to Sterling in a hushed voice. His expression changed, jaw tightening. What is it? Arielle asked quietly. Supply chain issue, he said. The shipment for next month's launch is 3 days behind schedule. I need to make a call. I can wait. No, he said, standing. I've kept you to myself long enough tonight. Go enjoy the music. I'll find you soon. As he disappeared into the shadows with the coordinator, Arielle wandered back toward the tent, her chest still warm from the weight of his jacket. The music had shifted to a slower tempo, couples swaying beneath the lanterns. She stood at the edge, unsure whether to join or retreat. That's when she heard the voice again, Olivia. This time not polished or polite. He's always had a weakness for projects, she said to a man beside her. It won't last. Once the novelty wears off, he'll go back to someone who fits the brand. Arielle turned away before they could see her, heart pounding. She didn't want to believe it, but the words burrowed into her like thorns. She didn't belong in this world, and maybe, just maybe, she never would. Arielle didn't sleep that night. The murmur of Olivia's voice echoed in her mind, stirring a storm of doubt that unraveled every fragile thread she dared to believe. By morning, her decision was made. She packed quietly, folded the gown with care, and left Sterling's jacket on the chair by the fireplace. It still smelled faintly of oak and something warm that didn't belong to a bottle. She left a note with the front desk asking them to thank Sterling for everything, nothing more, no explanations. No contact information, just a quiet departure. But when she reached the edge of the Vineyard's main gates, a sleek black car slowed to a stop in front of her. The driver's window lowered and Sterling stepped out, not in a suit, not with a prepared smile, but in jeans and a plain navy shirt, his expression unreadable. You were just going to leave. I figured it would be easier, she said, clutching the strap of her bag tighter. No awkward conversations, no drawn-out goodbyes. Then you figured wrong. I heard what Olivia said last night, she continued before he could speak. And maybe she's right. You could have anyone, someone who understands your world, your expectations. Who doesn't need convincing that she belongs. I don't care what Olivia thinks. But I do, Arielle said. Not because it's her, but because it reminded me that I've spent so much of my life trying to be enough for people who already made up their minds. I can't do that again. Not even with you. He stepped closer, the gravel crunching beneath his shoes. Then let me ask you something. When you talk about being enough, are you using their standard or your own? She blinked, caught off guard. What does that matter? It matters because I don't want someone who fits into a mold. I want someone who makes me break mine. Arielle's throat tightened. You don't even know what that looks like. I do, he said quietly. It looks like not caring if the investors raise their eyebrows when I bring someone to the table who doesn't have a portfolio but has something more valuable: clarity. Heart, a voice that doesn't echo anyone else's. She looked away, eyes stinging. You say all the right things, Sterling. But I've been sold dreams before, beautiful ones, polished, and they always end the same way. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. Then let me offer you something that isn't polished. She unfolded it slowly. It was a snapshot from one of the Vineyard's ledgers. Her name, written in his handwriting, under a new initiative labeled Narrative Collaborations. I'm launching a storytelling project, he explained. Every bottle we produce, every vintage, every label, it's going to come with a short story, real stories about transformation and risk. I want you to write the first one. Arielle stared at the page. You're offering me a job, I'm offering you a partnership. You still want to write something that's yours. His voice was steady, but his hands weren't. This would be yours. She folded the paper again, pressing it against her chest. Why are you doing this? Because I meant what I said from the beginning, he said. You crashed into me with a wine-stained blouse and a look in your eyes like you'd forgotten how it felt to want something without permission. And I saw myself in that. I've built a life surrounded by beauty and legacy and control, but I don't want control anymore. I want connection. Arielle looked up at him, something breaking loose inside her. I don't know if I can trust this. You don't have to trust the future yet, Sterling said. Just trust that this moment is real. She let out a breath. And what if I say yes? Then we drive back together, he said. And I take you to the library on the west side of the estate where no one ever goes. We'll sit with coffee and you'll tell me your first idea. And I'll listen not because I want to fix anything, but because I want to understand. Arielle hesitated only a second longer before stepping forward. She dropped her bag in the car and turned to face him fully. I have a story, she said. It starts with a woman who thought she'd lost everything. But she hadn't lost herself. Sterling reached for her hand, his fingers curling around hers like he'd been waiting for that exact moment. Sounds like a story worth telling. They drove back past the terraced vines and winding paths, neither speaking much, the quiet between them not awkward but full of something new, something grounded. In the library, she found a window seat overlooking the hills. He brought 2 mugs of black coffee and passed her a notebook. She opened to a blank page. This is terrifying, she said. It should be, he replied. It means it matters. She glanced at him, then began to write. Outside, the vineyard moved into harvest sunlight pouring over rows of ripe grapes, workers laughing in the distance, the hum of life continuing. Inside, a new chapter was beginning, not because someone had saved her, but because someone had seen her and reminded her she could still save herself. And love, when it arrived, didn't try to rewrite her, it simply asked to be written in. The first draft was rough. Arielle stared at the stack of pages scattered across the long oak table in Sterling's library, fingers stained with ink, her hair pulled into a haphazard knot that had started neat hours ago. Outside the window, dusk had already descended, casting the vineyard in deep blue shadows. A single lamp illuminated the room, throwing golden light over the words she'd fought for. Sterling entered quietly, carrying 2 bowls of something warm and fragrant. You haven't moved in hours, he said, setting one down beside her. Eat. The words will still be here when you're done. She leaned back in the chair. They're not good, Sterling. They're honest, he replied, pulling a chair beside hers. That makes them better than most. She took a bite, surprised by the flavor. You made this, he nodded. I cook when I'm stuck. It helps loosen things. She set the spoon down. You really do everything around here, don't you? No, I just like knowing how the pieces fit together. Arielle pushed the pages aside and looked at him. What happens after this? After the story goes out with the first bottle. That depends, he said. Is it a one-time story or the start of something bigger? Her heart stuttered. Are we still talking about the story? No, he said, reaching for her hand. We're not. She looked down at their fingers, then back at him. I don't know how to do this, not when it's real. Neither do I, he admitted, but I want to figure it out with you. There was no rush between them, no dramatic kiss, no sweeping gesture. Just a quiet, steady promise reflected in the way he held her hand, like it was the most important thing in the room. The next few months were a blur of deadlines, vineyard cycles, and late-night writing sessions. Arielle's story launched with the fall vintage, tucked into every box like a secret waiting to be discovered. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't polished, but it resonated. Orders doubled, reviews poured in. People didn't just want wine anymore, they wanted to feel something. Sterling never made a big deal about it. He didn't need to. He showed what it meant to believe in someone by making space for her voice to exist without condition. One morning, as Arielle reviewed layout proofs in the sunroom, Camille stepped through the archway. She wore her usual sleek tailoring, but her expression wasn't sharp, it was thoughtful. "I read your piece," Camille said. Arielle closed the binder. "Did it pass inspection?" "That's not why I'm here." She crossed the room and rested a hand on the back of a nearby chair. "I stayed in this job longer than I should have because I thought being essential meant being irreplaceable. Then you came in and proved there's a different kind of value." "I didn't mean to step on anything," Arielle said carefully. "You didn't," Camille replied. "You created something the rest of us forgot people still wanted. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm rethinking what I bring to the table." Arielle nodded. "I can respect that." Camille smiled faintly. "He's different with you, calmer, lighter." "That scares me more than anything," Arielle admitted. "Good," Camille said. "It means you're paying attention." Sterling found her in the vineyard that afternoon, sitting beneath the fig tree with her notebook open and her shoes off. "You've been quiet today," he said. "I had a strange conversation," she replied. "Do I want to know?" "No. But I think it means we're doing something right." He sat beside her, his shirt sleeves rolled again, but this time his hands were stained with dirt. He'd been helping harvest the late-season figs. "You know," he said, offering her one, "when my grandfather was dying, he told me to stop chasing perfection. He said the best wine he ever made came from a year everything went wrong." She took the fig, split it open, and handed him half. "Then we're in good company." They ate in silence beneath the tree, sunlight filtering through the leaves. No declarations were made, no promises shouted. But when Sterling reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box, her breath froze. He didn't open it right away. "I'm not asking you to be someone else," he said. "I'm asking if we can keep building something together. The vineyard, the stories, a life that doesn't need to be perfect to be ours." Arielle took the box and opened it. Inside was a ring unlike anything she'd expected, simple, elegant, a brushed gold band set with a single sapphire. She looked up at him. "You know this is insane, right?" "Yes," he said. "But it's the kind of insane that finally feels like home." She nodded once, then again, and then she was laughing through tears, wrapping her arms around him without answering because some things didn't need words. Later that year, beneath the same fig tree, they exchanged vows in a small ceremony attended only by those who meant something. No extravagance, no over-the-top spectacle, just sincerity, sunlight, and the scent of ripe fruit in the air. Camille gave a toast that made everyone laugh. Olivia didn't come. Arielle wore a dress she found in a boutique in town, one she chose herself. Sterling wore the same watch he always did because his grandfather had given it to him the day he took over the vineyard. And when they danced their first dance beneath the canopy of grapevines, Arielle whispered in his ear, "I think I finally know what home feels like." Sterling whispered back, "So do I." They continued to grow the storytelling project, expanding into new vintages, new collaborations. Arielle published her first novella under her own name, inspired by the very vineyard that had nearly swallowed her whole. It sold out in pre-orders. They traveled, but always returned to the hills. Their mornings started with coffee and ideas. Their nights ended with laughter and shared silence. And every year, on the same date they met, they opened a bottle of the first vintage she ever tasted with him, the Cabernet Franc that had once reminded him of someone still becoming. Now, it reminded him of everything they'd already become together.